Thân chào quý vị. Cảm ơn quý vị đã bỏ chút ít thời gian quý báu của mình để lắng nghe chương trình Today Saved by Grace. Chúng tôi cũng hy vọng có thể truyền tải đến các quý vị những thông điệp cho tâm linh quý vị. Thông điệp này không phải đến từ chúng tôi, mà đến từ Đức Chúa Trời, không phải cho đời sống vật chất trên thế gian tạm thời này, mà cho cuộc sống tâm linh trong một thế giới không bao giờ tàn phai. Hôm nay chúng ta sẽ đến với một câu chuyện có thật của Martin Bach. Một câu chuyện cảm động khiến chúng ta được khích lệ rất nhiều. Một con người từng chìm ngập trong bóng tối của ma túy, nghiện ngập, sa đọa, hung ác, ngang nghịch, trở thành một người được biến đổi bởi danh Chúa Giêsu. Hãy đến và cùng lắng nghe câu chuyện của anh ấy, Martin Bach.
My name is Martin Bach, and I'm from San Jose, California, actually a town called Milpitas. I was born and raised there all my life. I grew up there, K through 12, and I really never left the Bay Area. I have traveled all over, but I kind of stuck around the Bay Area, living all the way from San Francisco, and then now coming back to San Jose, near my hometown. I mean, I grew up in a suburb, very, middle income, just a nice neighborhood in Milpitas. Both my parents were around. I had a lot of family support, an older brother and a younger sister, and loving parents, both my mom and my dad and my grandma and, uncles, aunts. And so I did grow up in a very good, stable household all my life, and surrounded by a lot of friends in just the neighborhood. I grew up with a lot of just different people from different cultures. Just a very nice, peaceful, joyful, happy upbringing. So as a kid, I was pretty normal, just very good kid, I would have to say. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, I don't know. But I think for the most part, I was a pretty good behaved kid. I mean, I had bad moments, but I think at some point, it was actually at age 12 when, everything changed, really. I did start turning into, a pretty bad kid. Naughty, wild, whatever you call it, but just kind of fell away and got into a lot of trouble. My parents got divorced when I was about 11 and a half, around 12 years old, and so that had a huge negative impact on my life, right? My life just went from happiness, joy-filled, peace, to almost like a nightmare, right? I mean, my dad having to leave the house, no longer living with us, and it kind of just ripped my life in and just put it in shambles. I mean, I held it together because I was still going to school and doing the things I needed to as a kid, but psychologically I'd have to say it really took a toll on me, because without a father figure around the house, and I was confused, and I felt that love kind of leave the home, and at age 12 I couldn't process it fully, but I was entering the adolescent years, right? And age 13, I would have to say that, I don't know, how bad was I? What kind of things I did? I mean, I've done everything. It started out kind of in phases, if you will, but basically, started acting out, wanted attention. I would have to say, probably didn't do as well as in school, cheated on tests, right? And started lying and stealing and getting into fights, actually, as I entered into junior high. That was probably my young 13-year-old mind in the way of actually having an outlet for what I was feeling and going through. But think just acting out, what else? Doing things like smoking cigarettes and eventually doing drugs, doing a lot of different kinds of drugs. I experimented a lot and got caught up in that, I guess, that lifestyle, right, where I hung out with, and I knew a lot of, just, I guess, the wrong crowd, right, if you will, the crowd that our parents always warn us about, but I started seeking them because that's where I felt comfortable. I felt almost loved in a way, or accepted at least, because a lot of people who were I guess part of the bad crowd or the wrong crowd, I found out later on in life that they were actually the ones that came from broken families as well. So I just naturally kind of gravitated towards that bad crowd and started doing a lot of bad things. For me, I was just living life as I knew the only way I knew how, which was, enjoying life, getting all the pleasures out of life, fulfillment out of life, doing whatever I wanted to make me happy or to help me, experience, love or joy, right? And that was what was missing out of my life, right, at a very young age, as it got interrupted. So going into my 20s, I actually went to college, went to San Jose State at first, and got actually ended up joining a fraternity there, and so during those years, as I was entering, the age of 21, I did go to a lot of parties. Alcohol came into the picture, definitely drugs still, a lot of different ones. Anything that helped me feel, I guess, maybe escape from deep-rooted pain in my heart, or help me experience love or joy, even if it's a brief moment. I would do so, and I would seek for it, right? And so, very wild, very, very much a party type of person. Hung out with that type of crowd. It was a miracle that I actually graduated college, but I still did, eventually. And I got a business degree in computers, information systems, and I went on and I went on living life, right? I started working, and my pursuit became, money, right? And still partying and going out and socializing. I have a lot of friends, so I'm a pretty sociable type of person, and so that never really stopped. But in well into my 20s, mid 20s, even into my late 20s, I was still, going out there and kind of seeking, anything that would help me get this fulfilling feeling of accomplishment or success, whether that's money, whether that's job, whether that's career, whether that's partying, whether that's hanging out with friends or traveling, or relationships, or alcohol or drugs. Really, it's like YOLO, right? You only live once. It's a terrible saying now I think about it, but that's how I live my life. Live fast, die young. That type of attitude. I thought that I was God. To put it as bluntly as possible. This shirt, it's totally different now, of course. But at the time, I didn't think about Jesus or God or religion or church or anything like that, really. I thought I was God, to be pretty quite honest. It was because I grew up not really being, I guess, financially supported, throughout my college years, and so I did it all on my own. It didn't matter. I had, friends that weren't really into college or weren't studious. I didn't really have a background that supported going to college. I would say, yeah, some of my friends did definitely go to college, and I did have some really smart friends. But at the time, I was hanging out with kind of, the wild crowd, right, who wasn't really into it. So against all of these different odds, I put myself through school. I paid for it, on my own. And so after I graduated, I felt like I did it on my own. I didn't need anybody, to tell you the truth. I really didn't need anybody to help me, support me financially or spiritually or emotionally. I developed this very, I guess, this attitude, prideful attitude, that I did it all on my own. Look at me, And so the rest of my life, I control my destiny. I'm God. I don't need anyone else. So that's just kind of the way I live my life, as I create my own destiny. And if I fail because of me. And if I succeed, it's because of me. So that's the type of prideful attitude that I carried on throughout the rest of my life. I lived life for myself, as I had mentioned. Job, career, money, success, fortune, fame, even. I wanted money. Money was my main focus in life. I wanted a really good job and career. Being here in the Bay Area, that's what I was surrounded with. I have a lot of successful friends, and I've seen what success can do, and I wanted a piece of that. I wanted to get rich, because having money and a great career and job, it would finance all of my vices, so to speak, or all of the things that I wanted to do in life to get that sense of fulfillment, whether it's traveling the world, or buying expensive clothes and having nice fancy things. That's what drove me, right? And so, during that pursuit, because that's what was making me happy, temporarily, of course, but that's what I was chasing, and I continued to do so. I was working really hard. I was working at a company that was paying me pretty well, and I had a team of 14 people, and I was traveling a lot. I was working hard. I was working 6 to 7 days a week at a very big company. There's like 130,000 people at this company, and I was doing well. I was on my way up to becoming like director level, and again, I was chasing that money, right? That job, success, career, and in doing so. One day, it was actually a May 15th, 2015, is when I woke up on a Saturday, and I had a severe migraine and a headache, and I didn't know what was happening to me. I just knew that I had a migraine. It was probably because I was sick. I was working through a flu at the time, and at the moment I didn't realize this, but I actually called an Uber to get myself to a hospital, because I was debating, should I go to Walgreens and get over-the-counter headache medicine, or, I'm working for one of the top software hardware companies in the world. They have the best healthcare, so why not just go to the hospital, and they'll give me the strongest medicine. So I called an Uber, and I ended up in the hospital. But what I didn't know at the time was I ended up in the ICU, or the intensive care unit, and I was there for 9 days. And I had a intracranial brain hemorrhage, where basically a blood vessel just burst in my in my brain, and the bleeding was on its way of turning into an aneurysm. Uh, but I survived, you know. So after 9 days, I got out of the hospital, and I was during my 3 month of rehabilitation, and kind of waiting for the healing to happen, because I was getting severe headaches and I couldn't hear, and my vision was impaired, and I was learning how to kind of re-enter a state of 100% health. It was in that moment that it was actually not God who I turned to. I thought I was lucky, actually. I just thought, you know, I dodged a bullet, right? Oh, I get a second chance at life, yay, you know, so I better go out and celebrate, you know. And so, but at the same time, you know, 2 of my best friends, both named Chris, actually. One is the Japanese guy. His cousin had passed away when we were in our 20s, 23 years old, from the same exact thing that happened to me. And I was, during my rehabilitation in my bed, I was reflecting on this, that he didn't make it. He actually passed away at age 23. And I saw that devastating his family, right? And you know, that hit me, you know. But also my other best friend Chris, who is Vietnamese, his cousin, just 2 years before it happened to me, you know, he was 33 at the time. It happened to him, same thing, intracranial brain hemorrhage. But he didn't make it, you know, nearly as successful as I. You know, I mean, he, even to this day, he can't really talk, can't walk, can't feed himself, can't go to the bathroom, can't change, can't do the basic things that you and I can do, you know. I mean, he had to move back with his parents. He was the only child, by the way, you know, and engaged to be married at the time, actually. All of that, you know, just pretty much gone in an instant through this tragedy, you know. And I reflected on that, you know. Both really good kids, good people, younger than I, you know, and it happened to them. And, you know, and as I was reflecting, like I just felt guilty and shameful that, you know, I lived a life where, you know, I was a bad kid, you know, just pretty much did whatever I wanted, very selfish, and, you know, but here these kids are really good, as I knew it, actually, and lived good lives and were good kids, and but one's not here and one is paralyzed, maybe even perhaps the rest of his life, right? And so I felt guilty. I felt like, why did I live? Why am I getting better? Like, I mean, I was on my way to being 100% back to normal, which, I mean, as you could tell, I mean, I gained all my senses back. And you know, during that time, I was looking for answers, and so I turned to Buddha. Why I chose Buddha was because, you know, I wanted mental and physical healing, right? And I also wanted spiritual healing. I knew that, you know, I had, you know, a past that was filled with pain, so I wanted that healing. So I went and I sought after, you know, like this emotional, physical, spiritual type of healing. And well, I mean, from everything that I've heard all my life is Buddhism, right? Buddhism is the natural choice. And so I started picking up books on on Buddhism and spirituality and and books that even the Dalai Lama had written, and I decided in my studies and in my teachings of the Buddha that I realized that's when, well, there's a country in Asia. Well, there's many countries in Asia that is very heavily Buddhist influenced, and one being Thailand. They're the number one Buddhist influenced nation in the world. And then number 2 is Cambodia. Number 3 is Burma or Myanmar. And so I decided, well, what better way to learn how to become Buddhist, than go to the actual source, right? And so I said, I'm going to go to Thailand. 95% of the country is Buddhist. So I said, okay, as soon as I get better, I'm going to go and live there, and which I did. I lived in northern Thailand for several months, actually, and that's when I really started becoming Buddhist. Every day, chanting, praying, meditating, talking to Buddha, praying to Buddha, right, and going to all the temples. I must have went to over 100 temples all across northern Thailand, Chiang Rai, that's where I was living, and going into Myanmar, and going to all the temples, and doing all the chants, and putting the flowers and the statues, bowing to the the statues of Buddha, and really just being immersed in that practice. I felt more peace because I thought that, I was kind of in the act of, searching. And so I think in that act of searching for some sort of a higher power or some sort of a higher state, more of a peaceful state of mind, something that this world can't offer, right, is something that I was searching for. And I think I did, find some elements of peace, but I think it was, not a complete 100% fulfillment of peace, not one that I feel now every day of my life, through Christ. But I mean, to answer finally your question about how I met God or how God came to my life, through it's a long story of events which I won't get into, but it was actually on my final day of being on my trip to Thailand. I mean, I went for several months, and I think it was my final day, December 5th, 2015. It was on that day in which I actually had a plane ticket to go to Singapore to visit my friend, and then come back to the States, and that was going to be it, my journey, and it was going to come to an end. So I actually had a plane ticket on December 5th. And then my best friend Chris, also, who had joined me unexpectedly, he wasn't even supposed to be with me on this trip, but he, through some series of events, ended up joining me. And so he actually had a ticket to fly back on December 5th to go back to the US, because we had already been there for months, right? And so it was on that day that we were invited to a village. It was an Aka Hill Tribe village, northernmost point of Chiang Rai. It was probably 40 minutes up in the mountains, in a little hill tribe called Ban Hoi Kom in Thailand. And it was all Aka people or hill tribe people who aren't even Thai. They don't speak Thai. They don't even have Thai social security numbers. They can't send their kids to school or can't get health care. So they're just very retreated type of a people group that live literally in the mountains of Thailand, and kind of have escaped for centuries, right, and are self-sustaining as a result. And so it's a miracle that we were even able to be invited to that village. But when we went there, our family kind of cooked for us and had a meal, and we met a few people in the village, and then after the meal they invited us to go to church. And my buddy and I thought, oh yeah, okay, Buddhist church, yeah, let's do it, and we got excited because it was, we'd been to all these Thai Buddhist temples, but never a hill tribe Akka village temple in the top of the mountains. So we were very excited, and my friend being Buddhist himself, growing up in a Buddhist family, so we said, yes, let's do it. And we went, and as we got closer to the building in the village, it wasn't actually, to our surprise, it wasn't a Buddhist temple. It was actually a Christian church, and it was, people were singing and dancing and praising, and we didn't know what that was, but it was just singing in their dialect. And we stepped foot in, we saw the big red cross, and it was there that God first really introduced himself to us and welcomed us in a very divine way, in a very spiritual way, in a way that's undeniable. At the moment, it was just almost one of those moments where we kind of almost fell to our knees. It was that powerful of an experience. It was truly God welcoming us home. There was people singing and dancing, and they welcomed us. We sat kind of in the middle, and Chris and I, we were looking around like, where are we? What is going on? We saw this giant red cross in front of us, people being very happy and singing and dancing. We couldn't understand them because they were speaking in their tribal tongue, but we felt the presence of God, undoubtedly. It was to a point where our hearts started racing, and we were just overwhelmed with a lot of different mixed emotions. That's the best way I could put it. I mean, I felt shamed and guilty and almost saddened by the fact that I didn't believe in God. I thought God was a fairy tale. I thought, oh, the Bible, yeah, whatever, that's just for those people. Jesus, yeah, he may have been a historical figure, but not for me, and it's for those religious fanatics. That's what I thought, and that's how I lived my life. And so when I saw the cross, that was apparent to me that I was being led there for a reason. And so I felt guilt and shame because I thought that they were fantasy, God, Jesus, fairy tales. But yet here he's revealing himself as the truth. I mean, you said like the author of the book, the author of the gospel. Back then, if you told me that, I wouldn't have understood what an author meant, but now I do. Because, but at the moment, God was really it was almost as if he was welcoming us. We were so broken, we were so torn, we were so bad, we were so, selfish, we were so all about me, the world, and like satisfying our own fulfillment and pleasures in life all these years, for decades, and yet God saw past all that, and what else I felt was his love, his embrace, his warmth, his unconditional love and acceptance. Like he's just welcoming us. And I know this sounds like almost unbelievable, but when I think about it, even now, that's what was happening. He, in that moment, was welcoming my friend and I back into his embrace and telling us that I am real. I am truly God. And I'm welcoming you in spite of whatever you've done in your life, and I want you to know that, and I want you to be with me. And it was like that it was 15 different emotions that I felt in one precise moment, and it was overwhelming. And that's why I said it kind of pretty much brought us to our knees. I mean, crying. We were both just crying, and just pretty much on our knees, like, wow, God, this whole time, you are real. It was truly a divine, eye-opening experience. It really was, and that's what we both had experienced in that moment. I had been gone for a year total, like out of like not working, and so as soon as I had come back, I reconnected with my friends, my family, who I hadn't seen in months, some in over 6 months, and during this time. And so I wanted to reconnect with them and get back and assimilated back into the life, into the Bay Area, right? Into the world, really, which is job, work, money. That was like what was on the forefront of my mind, even though this divine God experience happened to me. I went back into the world, and I went back there fast because I was so consumed with trying to get a job, really. And so then the next several months I was heavily focused on getting a job and worrying about my finances and getting that in order. But my friend Chris, he actually went straight to God. He didn't waste any time. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, he actually went to church and on his own, and not even with anyone else. I mean, Buddhist all his life. I mean, and he just went and he followed. He followed God. He really did, and he accepted Christ that night. And then I started seeing his transformation slowly but surely. And then I wanted that. I knew I longed for it. And within a 4-month period, I started following him in his transformation. And then slowly it was starting to transform me. It was really God, now that I look back at it. But I started listening to him. Not this loud booming voice from the sky opening up from the clouds, but listening. And what I mean by that is I started turning towards him. I started seeking him. I started actually wanting to and having the desire to learn more about him. And not having the desire for like money, job, success, career, even though that was still in my heart, or all the other things that I was involved with in this world that the world tells us that we need, right? But I was kind of slowly turning my focus on him, and as I started hearing him through songs or through people or through seeing Chris in his life and how God was transforming him. I mean, this guy was completely different back then, and I started seeing his heart transformed. And in that moment, I started seeing, as I started learning about God, especially when I started going to church. And it's because that's where I met other people who were in tune with Jesus, who had accepted Christ. And so when I'm surrounded by people who have Jesus in their hearts as well, that's when the true transformation started to occur, because I started then, wow, like these people aren't just Christian, fanatic, church religious, brainwashed, mind controlled, right? Like people that are just fooling themselves, buying into this false religion, and that is in this cult. That's what I had thought all my life, right? That's what I thought. But no, not at all. It's the actual opposite. It really is. It's the most loving, kind, generous, giving, patient, selfless, right? Not selfish, but the opposite, just the most generous, peaceful people that I've ever met in my life, actually. That was my first experience. And so when the transformation really started happening was when I went to San Francisco Lighthouse, a church that was right around the corner from where I lived in San Francisco. And then I met some of these people that I'm describing. And I started reading the Bible. That's when it was when I really started opening up the book. That's when the transformation really started. It was like the words came alive to me. And you can't really understand that unless you actually read it and take the time. But not only just read it, but have the heart. Like, lower your pride, which I did. Submitted to Him and just said, you know what, God? Fine, you have me. I want to learn about you. And giving like my 100%, my heart to Him, and just saying, you know what? If you're real, I want to know every single thing about you. And when I gave that type of commitment to Him, that's when I started opening up the Bible. And with that heart, that's when everything started just making sense. And He started really transforming my heart. So, I mean, you're talking to a guy right now, or you're listening to a guy right now that, has lived a pretty wild, crazy lifestyle, in the past. I don't have those desires anymore. You know what I mean? My life was all about having fun and success and money driven and driving fast cars and going to Vegas. I couldn't wait till, the next bachelor party that, one of my friends got married. Oh yeah, let's go to the bachelor party. Or travel the world, go to all these countries I've never been to. All of these self-fulfillment type of desires in my heart. That's like the pleasures in life in this world. That's the guy that you're listening to. That's who I was. I don't really have those type of desires. In actuality, those are just very temporary, very short-term fulfillments in life. And they don't really give you maybe in a moment, maybe temporary satisfaction, but in the end, that's all it offers. And during my transformation process and reading the Bible and starting to learn and having a relationship with Jesus, like a direct relationship with Him, and starting to understand how He lived His life, and now I'm really getting transformed, is because I'm learning about Him. And when I started really following and devoting my life to Him, that's when all those other things in this world that the world teaches us that's important didn't really speak to me anymore. It didn't really impress me. All those things that are in those rap songs or those rap videos, they didn't impress me. All the fancy watches and the fancy clothes, cars, didn't impress me anymore. That lifestyle, whether it's alcohol or drugs or whatever it is, that fast lifestyle, it didn't impress me anymore. What impressed me was really being closer and closer to Jesus. It may sound, far out there, but it's not until you experience Him truly. And so that's when the transformation really got me. And if you really think about it, I'm sure many of you may feel this way, but let me ask you a question. When is the last time you've had like love, peace, joy, happiness, complete fulfillment? I'm talking about all of those at the same time. Not just in a moment, not just in an hour or in a day or a couple days, but every single minute of every single day, every day. When was the last time? Maybe when you were a kid, right? That's my guess, because that's when it was for me. I was 11 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old, 7 years old, when I was playing Little League, when I was playing video games, when I was going out and having fun and playing, and that's when I was being loved by both my parents and my family. That's when I felt love, joy, peace, fulfillment, all, every day. But we grow up, right? We become adults and we see all the pains and sufferings of this world, and we go through that pain and suffering and rejection. And well, with Jesus, I guarantee you will find fulfillment. All of those fulfillments I'm talking about: love, joy, peace, happiness, fulfillment. All of it, every day. Because that's what I feel. And I'm not alone. There's my friend Chris, and there's millions of people, everyone that that I'm surrounded with now, and that I meet on a weekly basis. Everyone, the common denominator is Jesus Christ. That's it.
Gia đình ly tán. Trong chúng ta, ai cũng từng lầm lỗi, ai cũng có quá khứ. Chúng ta không thể thoát ra khỏi quá khứ tồi tệ bằng chính sức lực riêng của chúng ta, mà chỉ nhờ ân điển và sức mới từ nơi Chúa. Tìm đến với Chúa là quyết định sáng suốt và tuyệt vời nhất của cuộc đời Martin Bach. Còn quý vị thì sao? Quý vị có muốn cuộc đời mình được biến đổi, nhận được tình yêu và sự tha thứ không? Hãy quay về với Chúa ngay lúc này thì quý vị sẽ nhận được niềm vui cứu rỗi ấy. Hãy dừng bước chân phiêu du, lang thang của quý vị nơi nhà Cha. Chúa Cha nhân từ luôn sẵn lòng đón nhận quý vị vào vòng tay của Ngài.
Bao ngày qua, con đã lạc bước xa nhà Cha. Con đi tìm cho riêng mình một tình yêu, một chân lý, nhưng nào đâu thấy. Thật con quá nhỏ bé và cô đơn, đau thương và mệt nhoài trong cuộc sống này. Nhiều lúc con chẳng biết đi về đâu, con như vô vọng trong lối đi. Nhưng Chúa vẫn bên con, Ngài vẫn yêu thương và dìu dắt con trở về.
Con cô đơn tìm đến yêu thương chân gian, con chơi vơi ngày tháng hư không mà thôi. Ai hay chăng để sống như hoa bèo trôi, con mãi mê đi tìm chân lý. Ai bên con những lúc đau thương khổ đau, bao chuộc cây cuộc sống không như hằng mơ. Nghe trong tim một tiếng êm dịu nhu khuyên, con hỡi con hãy mau quay về. Dừng bước chân phiêu du ngày nào, con đã trở về nơi mái nhà Cha. Dù chính con ôm giờ lầm than, chìm trong biển tội không một đường ra. Ngày tháng đam mê nơi trần gian, và lạc bước chân con về chốn nào, đến với Cha tìm về lẽ sống. Ai chốn Golgotha năm xưa, Giêsu chết thay cho anh và tôi. Quỳ gối ăn năn bao tội xưa, nước mắt rớt dài trên đôi hàng mi. Ngài nắm tay lau khô lệ rơi, đời vui thoát khi con thuộc Chúa Cha. Mau trở về, Chúa đang chờ ơi. hằng mơ. Nghe trong tim một tiếng êm dịu nhu khuyên, con hỡi con hãy mau quay về. Dừng bước chân phiêu du ngày nào, con đã trở về nơi mái nhà cha. Dù chính con ô giờ lầm than, chìm trong biển tội không một đường ra. Ngày tháng đam mê nơi chân gian, và lạc bước chân con về chốn nào. Đến với cha tìm về lẽ xưa. Tại chốn Golgotha năm xưa, Giêsu chết thay cho anh và tôi. Quỳ gối ăn năn bao tội xưa, nước mắt rớt rãi trên đôi hàng mi. Ngày nắm tay lau khô lệ rơi, đời vui thoáng khi con thuộc Chúa Cha. Mau trở về, Chúa đang chờ. Dừng bước chân phiêu du ngày nào, con đã trở về nơi mái nhà cha. Dù chính con ô giờ lầm than, chìm trong biển tội không một đường ra. Ngày tháng đam mê nơi chân gian, và lạc bước chân con về chốn nào. Đến với cha tìm về lẽ sống.
Tại chốn Golgotha năm xưa, Giêsu chết thay cho anh và tôi. Quỳ gối ăn năn bao tội xưa, nước mắt rớt dài trên đôi hàng mi.
Ngài nắm tay lau khô lệ rơi, đời vui thoáng khi con thuộc Chúa Cha. Mau trở về, Chúa đang chờ. Mau trở về.